It's another SpongeBob reference, guys.
Yeah, it is.
I have to say,
Right now, I have to stop saying.
hey, Luds, the show's about to start.
No, we're on. Aren't
Oh,
we?
yeah, we are.
You were trying to catch me again.
Yep. No, we're on.
I never try to catch you, Luds.
Not
I don't
you,
want
him.
you to swear on the show.
This time.
No,
John gets in trouble if we swear.
Yeah.
we used to play that game.
Don't tell him that, Sam. That's gonna make him do it more.
Yes, he's definitely going to do that more. All right.
I got to
This-
take a collection from everybody listening, though, to pay my
This is
fines.
our cold open for our pregame show for a game the Stars are going to play against the Calgary Flames tonight. Luds apparently has his IOU reminder from our boss now on his sleeve, was on his chair when we got here. It says, "You still owe me $10, GM Ben."
Which
There
I
it
don't
is.
agree with that.
You think it should be more?
As soon as it was past the fast, speedy channel thing, it was it was open game. Play that back at some point.
You made
Somebody
we could do this-
start the show,
If we had a
Willie.
regular show for like a week, we would definitely dive into this more. You made an agreement verbally with Ben, who then had a written confirmation on the chat that you could say at one time deal for $10.
I didn't see where it said one time.
You
It
said it.
after we get done. No, why would I ever say that? Why would I? Well, if you cut me loose, you cut me loose.
Get ready, boys.
That's
Never leaves his apartment. Theater.
We're live. This is the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show, getting ready for Stars and Flames tonight. Craig Ludwig, who, unlike the Lannisters, has yet to pay his debts. That was for John. And for Sam, who's over at the AAC,
Thanks,
Sam
Dennis.
Nessler. I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us. And say hello to John, who is our
I'm here,
resident.
and I just nailed a Breaking Bad trivia question that Luds gave me
did.
during the countdown.
That was
He
good.
presented
That
it
was
as,
real good.
as if it was like a MASH trivia question, like this old time show
did
that my
sound like
generation wouldn't get. Show came out in 2008, Luds.
2008.
2008 was Breaking Bad.
And then he gave you a hard time for getting it right, which
I
is.
didn't give you a hard time.
Oh, you started teasing
No,
off
I'm
on
like,
him.
does he ever go out?
See, that is
Yeah.
giving him a hard time.
I've watched one of the most popular shows of all time, and that means I haven't gone out. I
Well, you
don't
seem
leave
to
the
know
house.
every movie clip.
He's movie buff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does he ever get
has
out?
Extensive knowledge.
New Happy
I,
Gilmore coming out.
I can
this
attest
summer.
that
I'm
he
just a
does
sad
indeed
virgin, Lutz.
know how to leave his apartment. All right, let's talk about the Flames. Let's talk to Sam real quick here. Sam, lineup news for tonight. What's going on for the Stars roster as they get ready to play Calgary for the second of 3 times?
Yeah, as I leaned over to Mike Heika this morning, I said the Stars are doing a really good job of making our jobs easier ahead of the deadline because not a whole lot of lineup changes going on basically since the break. We're going to see the same lineup tonight again, which is Colin Blackwell and Brendan Smith as the scratches. Blackwell's been scratched, I believe, since that Islanders game when Stankoven was the one that came out. So same lineup as last game. Jake Oettinger is back in the net. For me, this is an important little stretch for Jake because, as we talked about a couple of games ago, he's been inconsistent. His numbers have been really good and then really average back every other game, back and forth. He's in the 900s, then he's in the 850s save percentage wise. So I think for Jake, it's not all on him. Obviously, it's team defending, and there's been a few more leaks here and there the last week or so. But I think for Jake, it's important to find that what he had before the break, find that confidence, find that consistency, and really be a bigger reason to help his team win games. But the one thing that we are expected to see with the morning skate lines this morning is Mikkel Granlund moving up to that top line on the right side of Robertson and Hintz, which if you remember from the post-game show last game against the Devils, Pete DeBoer actually said that after the game. He said that that's something they're looking at as an option because they're not sure who they want up there. We've seen Bork, we've seen Stankoven, we've seen Dodonov, we've seen a bunch of different options up there. So Mikkel Granlund is expected to start on that right wing, which I think is interesting because he brings a lot to that line, right? Pete talked about what he can bring. I asked a bunch of players what type of player he is. Answers were all the same. So competitive for his size. competitive in general. But then when you look at the fact that he's not that big of a guy, it really stands out how competitive he can be in winning pucks and all that kind of stuff. But he's got really good vision, and I think to play with Robertson and Hintz, Bork told me this the other day, and it's been reiterated a few times through the room. It's really important to play the small little plays, the little 1, 2, 3 passes in a small window to open up space. It's not as much carrying the puck and circling in the zone. It's a lot of little plays and then finding a quick opening for a shot from the slot or wherever it might be. And that's what they've been so good at lately. Robertson and Hintz, and on the power play 5-on-5, we've seen some really good passing. So I think for Granlund, to bring that to that line, it should help a lot for the Stars. And then as we talked about Owen this morning, and everyone pretty much already knows, if Tyler Seguin comes back in the playoffs as he's expected to, and he's anywhere near the number 91 we saw in before his injury, he's going on that line with Marchment and Duchesne. It's just there's no reason not to put him there. So to put Granlund up here, it's kind of like this is another audition for someone that could fit there. We already know probably that it's going to be 3 centers down the middle, hence Duchesne and Johnston for the playoffs. So let's find a fit for Granlund so that we have a little more flexibility within the lineup. And I think that's important. And Pete said that they know he's Granlund's a center. They know he can play center, but right now they love what he's doing at wing. And he even said, looking at those 3 centers that we just mentioned, it's a pretty good spot to play wing on any of those 3 lines. So looking for Granlund to have some success tonight and on that top line.
Sam Burned Oil said, congratulations to you for changing your camera angle, appropriately showing the 99 Stanley Cup band. Nope, the other side.
Not that way. It's
nope.
backwards. It's reversed.
Yep. Still pointing the wrong way.
This hand. Yes, watch this. This
over
hand
your
here.
that shoulder. Looks like your left shoulder. Yep, right there. There you go. Okay, you don't need to tickle it. Let's show some respect.
Beautiful.
Finally, trade deadline is tomorrow. How are the Stars handling the day before the NHL trade deadline?
Yeah, Pete DeBoer's been asked about this a few times this last week or so, and he's had some interesting answers. For the most part, he's been through it a ton. His coaching staff's been through it a ton. It really doesn't affect them that much. He did mention they're in pretty much daily phone conversations with Jim Nill, so I don't know how much they're involved in terms of decisions, but Jim Nill is at least communicating with the coaching staff. I'm sure they have had meetings about what they may need, what might happen. But that's just one side of the trade deadline, right? The other side is the fact that they're still having to come in here and play games. Every team's got to play games leading up to the deadline, and that is a really distracting thing. Lutz talks about distractions. How much of a distraction is it where you, your friends, your line mate, your teammate can just get their life upended at any moment? And it's not just the guys on the Phillies and the I was about to say Columbus because I'm just used to them being down there, but they're actually not. The Chicagos and those teams that we know are going to be sellers. It's the buyers too, because you have no idea who may go in and who may go out. Rope Hintz isn't sitting there thinking I may get traded tomorrow, but he has to in his mind be thinking our team could look different tomorrow. There could be one guy here that's not here tomorrow. There could be 2 guys here that weren't here yesterday. It's a very distracting time. So Pete said he gives a ton of credit to the players to just come out and play the game every night. They've played some good hockey. They've found a way to win games. They're kind of in that weird spot where they're not really battling. They're chasing Winnipeg and they're trying to hold off the Colorados and the Minnesotas, but they're not in a spot like Calgary tonight, who is every single point is life or death. They're going to go up and down in a playoff spot with just 1 loss. And they're also not in a spot where they're going to be huge buyers or huge sellers. So it's kind of in the middle of let's just focus and play hockey, and whatever happens, happens. And I give them a ton of credit for doing that.
Well, you get credit for the camera angle shift in your setup, which is a different look than the prisoner of war look that we usually see from the apartments. So kudos
the light
to that.
And everything.
I mean, we're maturing, Sam, by the day.
It's big time.
I love it. All right, bud. Thanks very much. We'll see you afterwards for the postgame.
All right, see you, boys.
All right, Luds, I got a lot for you today, and I'm sure you have some things about the Flames and Stars as well. But I would like to start with the owner of the Dallas Stars, Tom Gaglardi. Tom Gaglardi was on a podcast up in Vancouver yesterday, and in doing so, he spoke a bit about, of course, being the owner of the Dallas Stars and a bunch of topics. But there's 2 particular things that I think would be most appropriate for everybody to hear. And the first it was on the Donnie and Dolly, the team podcast up in Vancouver. They do a podcast about the Vancouver Canucks. Here's what Tom Gaglardi had to say about Miro Heiskanen.
Well, he just got a classic, knee ligament tear. So it just takes time, and he's rehabbing, super hard. He's a very committed guy, and we're just hoping that we can get him back early in the playoffs. We're pretty sure he's not going to play any regular season games. So, and so we're projecting at some point, possibly sometime in the first round, but it's still up in the air. It's a ways away, and these things take time. So it's really unfortunate. He's, really our best player. And so it hurts not to have him.
To me, that's the most definitive we've heard from anybody in the Stars organization about saying absolutely no for the regular season. We knew that was sort of trending that way, but now we're hearing possibly for the first round. Does that make you pause and worry a little bit that it might be longer than that?
It doesn't make me worry. It is what it is. So, sometimes not everybody wants to hear everybody tell things out of school and stuff like that. So it's out now. But I mean, the players have known and the coaches have known regardless of that. And sometimes does it help your negotiating if you're looking to do something or not? I don't know. Sometimes, so you're not getting that guy back. You really need that guy pretty bad, don't you? That's just things I know from the past.
Sure.
Like, nah, let's kind of keep.
Are you saying then the front office is not thrilled to hear their owners share that? Or
I think
before the deadline?
I think they try to keep everything under wraps, right? I mean, we never know anything, and so we knew that they were going to take. Tyler was probably going to be back before Miro was. I mean, that much we knew, or at least heard, and it was going to take some time. So. Yeah, I mean, I think that if that's the case, then does that make anything else more important? Listening to you and Sam talk, it's like, you have to be careful because teams that are rolling like the Dallas Stars are too, they're trying to make a statement too. They're trying to make a statement to everybody that's not a player is that we love what's going on in this room and we like what's going on the ice. And can you always tweak things? Maybe not tweak them, but add something to it because you have to make sure that if you are going to make a move and you are going to take out a piece, maybe there are bigger pieces than others, but don't disrupt what's going on.
Well, the moves they already made with Granlund and Ceci, particularly Granlund, although Ceci, you could argue, has also been really important with the injuries to Heiskanen and Lundqvist. But Granlund is a big one and a big add. It might be one of the biggest bargains of the trade deadline. We'll talk more about that on the second half of our pregame show. But Ghilardi also was asked about, are the Stars going to do anything about the trade deadline? And this is about a 90-second clip, and he gets into talking about the situation and a lot of stuff that we know, but really listen to those last 10 seconds.
We have a habit of kind of doing things early and getting out in front of it. And, we're usually able to find the players and the partner who will, you make a fair deal and, it takes the pressure off that team heading into the deadline to get something done. In this case, San Jose. And, there's always a risk that your guy, you think you're going to move at the deadline, gets injured and those types of things. So that's kind of our process. So, and I think the injury to Miro really expedited our need to get some help on the back end and some depth because we lost, a 24, 25 minute guy. So, I don't know what we're going to do. It's really a crazy market because there's so many teams in it now. And if you look back 2-3 weeks ago, it looked like the 8th spot in the playoffs in the West, for instance, was going to come down to Calgary or Vancouver. But now those teams have let a whole bunch of other teams in the race now. So it'll be interesting to see. Teams that we expected that would be moving players at the deadline might not. And it's pretty jammed up. There's still a lot of teams that are in it in the East as well. So. There's just it's unclear as to, and I know these teams are waiting to the last minute to know, are we going to stay the course or are we going to, move our UFAs and try to gain some assets and fight another time. So it'll be very interesting, and it wouldn't surprise me to see us do something on the depth side of things. Always looking for depth, so we'll see what's out there and if there's a fit.
There's the end of it right there. Wouldn't be surprised to see us do something on the depth side of things.
But everybody does. I mean, everybody that's trying to, that's got a team, you're always trying to add depth because you're, especially from the defenseman side, we always say that you're probably going to roll through 7, 8, sometimes 9 defensemen. So you always want to be deeper there if you can. But that doesn't mean you're going to get a game changer. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting Colton Parayko. You're not getting him anyways because he's I got a text last night about that. Somebody texted me and I'm like, okay, I didn't think it was going to happen.
And then it came out today and I texted you and you were like, yep.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't think that was going to happen.
No.
Because it would be a nice wish of mine to have a guy like that.
He's kind of saying it might not be a home run swing. It might they're probably not expecting that.
You know, there is a swing out there yet. So there could be somebody swinging on it, but it'll, a lot of things have to, if you're taking a home run swing, again, you have to make sure what you're giving up for the future. And I think that's a lot of who Jim Nill is. But I was just talking to some guys at the rink about an hour ago, and the question was, Luds, should they? And I said, absolutely. They are knocking on the door. And if there is that one guy sitting out there that's having issues or can't get anything decided, and if you can make that kind of a thing work, you take that swing regardless if you're going to have him or not. If he walks, he walks. And if you can't fit it in, this is what's important right now. As long as you're not giving up, something super important,
right?
Moving down
or to the point where it hurts you more in the long run than that title right now. The Nieuwendyk-Iginla trade is the perfect example of you gave up something that turned into a Hockey Hall of Famer for a huge piece that helped you win a Stanley Cup. That was a good trade. That's, I think, the kind of thing you're willing to take a home run for.
And it sounds like the difference I would say in that is Jerome hadn't played a game yet. You know what I'm saying? So now some of the pieces that it seems like they may have to give up, we've seen what they can do.
Yep.
So we kind of know what they are, and the fans kind of know what they are.
And the other teams scout, they know.
Sure. And so and sometimes that's better because you can project out a little bit easier. But again, I don't think that, we're not seeing Marchment go anywhere. We're not seeing Hintz or Robo, things like that. Trust me, Wyatt's not going anywhere.
And Wyatt not either. We'll talk more about this tomorrow for our trade deadline show from 1 to 2-ish. We'll see how long we go past the deadline tomorrow on the show. We can talk about it a little bit more in the postgame. We'll get to that.
I'm going to ask Wyatt
and some stuff in a minute
$10.
Here on the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show. But first, let's talk about Sleeper, best fantasy league platform out there. You can put your puck knowledge or ball knowledge to the test by picking your favorite or least favorite players, whether they will have more or less than their projected stats each week. We will do a pregame picks video with our fabulous guru, John, in just a moment. As Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper keeps you in the loop with instant alerts for breaking news and major injuries. Stay ahead of the game and keep track of league updates in real time so you're always informed and ready to outsmart your friends. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use the code DLLS Stars to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. Apply it to any contest, doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And now, drum roll, here's John.
Gentlemen, I got some bills to pay this month, so our theme tonight is going to be the power play, and we will, of course, be riding Mr. What did I call him again? Byatt Johnston. So theme tonight is the power play. I have Byatt Johnston recording more than 0.5 power play points. So doesn't have to be can be an assist, can be a goal, but it has to be on the power play. Stars have had one of the top power play units led by Mr. Steve Spott, of course, since the first of the year, and the Flames are tied for the most power play goals allowed this season, as well as having one of the worst PKs in the NHL. I believe it is 27th off the top of my head, totally not on a phone right in front of me. And what we're also going to do here, which if you looked at the little scrolly thing on the right here, or on the left, depending on which way you're looking, that would be the Sleeper app. Directly next to Mr. Byatt Johnston, we are going to do what I like to call juicing the entry, and we're going to pick something that it would be wild if this didn't hit, and that would be Connor McDavid also recording more than 0.5 points on the power play. Put those two together, and you will earn 5.4 times your entry. Gentlemen?
Thank you, John. Let's talk about Mikael Granlund, because the news of the day, as Sam talked about at the top of the show, is the fact that they are going to start him on the line we call the top line with Jason Robertson and Roope Hintz. Now, John, if you would flash up the Stars forwards on the card here. Luds, what's your initial reaction when you see Granlund up with Hintz, Robertson, and how it shakes out?
He's the Finnish Army knife, right? I mean, he can play anywhere with anybody. He can play with those guys. He can play in those tight little areas. He goes to the front of the net. He does work along the walls. We've seen him get to the front of the net. I mean, it was because of Granlund that goal was scored with, 3-4 seconds left the other night. So he goes to all those places. He can play up and down the lineup, and if he has to come in and take a faceoff, he'll come in and take a faceoff. So, I mean, you can play this guy anywhere. He's proven that. And I love his stature because he's got this low center of gravity. His legs are apart. He's hard to move off of the puck. He's hard to move in the corners. So next thing you know, sometimes along the walls and things like that, there's always sometimes when the first guy can't knock him off the puck, somebody else has to come and help him. Now all of a sudden that opens up a little space for whether it's Robo or Hintz or some of the defensemen creeping in there. So he just does a lot of the good things. I mean, it's we can keep on going back to what Jim Nill does, and this could be a diamond in the rough when at the end of the day when you look at this thing.
What I really like about this, and we talked about this the other night, is this gives us a snapshot of how that trio will play together, because I like that when Tyler Seguin returns from injury, I like him going back with Duchesne and Marchment, and Granlund seems like a great fit there if you want to keep Wyatt Johnston centering his own line. I hope it goes well. I have every reason to think it will. I asked Jason Robertson this morning. It was at the very end of the availability. They were about to kick us out of the room, so I couldn't have a long conversation with him. I said, I want to ask you about Granlund. He goes, well, I'm sure Rope's happy. And then he smiled again, and I said, no, seriously. He goes, honestly, I just hope they speak English on the ice so I'll understand. Yeah.
Well, they let the puck and their sticks do the talking for them most of the time. So, and there's nothing wrong with the interchangeable parts that they have on this team. They've been doing it all year long. And I look at it from a playoff standpoint. You get into the playoffs, and other coaches and teams are going to drill down on every other team that they play and all the teams and the lines that they play against. You can be playing different guys when you play at home versus, where you have the last change and you get on the road and you can have something totally different. So all of a sudden their matchups become a little bit more challenging if they're trying to take one player away, or more importantly on this team, they're more the sum of their parts. Mm-hmm. It's not just that one individual player. They're connected, and it doesn't really seem right now it matters, especially in the top six. Whoever plays with whoever, they're able to make it work.
Okay. We're going to pause for a second before I get to my next topic, because we actually have a pregame show super chat. John, if you could cue that up, if you would, please.
Bing bang.
One, and it's for Luds.
Yeah, I imagine.
Burned oils, a little 561, which is Lundqvist, and nobody's ever worn 61 for the Dallas Stars, but it's Canadian, so it's actually 393, which is Ludwig, and no one's worn 93 for the Stars. And Burned Oil says, can you take off that paper, please? Piece off of my Luds. It's bothering me, which you already did, but then it's over here.
But there's still not enough. Oh, yeah, I just moved it over here. We still
right.
need a little more.
Yeah.
But Burned Oils, so here's the problem with all this kind of stuff. We're not sure where this money is actually going, because it's not coming here anywhere. We don't see any of that, but we don't know where it's actually floating off to.
Don't talk them out of doing the super chat yet.
No, absolutely not, because this may help get down to the bottom of it.
That's right. Well, we'll have to talk to Ben in the post game. Maybe he can give us a little bit of maybe help or whatever. By the way, don't forget to hit that like button. You guys did a phenomenal job in the post game the other night. We had over 200 likes, I think. It was fantastic. We'll do it again post game. Luds, let's look at the D. No changes on the defense for the Stars tonight. I asked Matt Dumba about his visor, going back to that instead of the bubble, the big thing. He said, and I am paraphrasing because he used a different word. He joked and said, I'm not getting called a quote unquote sissy on the ice as much anymore.
Well,
it
what
was
he
a
meant
different
to say
word.
Was
yeah.
Okay.
And then he laughed, and then he acknowledged in a more serious way that there is a difference having his visor on, because if people that aren't sure, if you're wearing a full shield or cage, if you want to engage legally in a fight in the NHL, you have to remove your entire helmet before you do that. Well, obviously, if you're wearing a visor to protect, or a shield to protect your face, you're not going to do that and risk getting punched in the face and get injured and miss more games. So basically, your opponents know that you're not going to drop the gloves when you're wearing that. And he says just the threat of being able to do that definitely makes a difference on the ice.
Well, we're talking about the full cage. Now, the visors,
we're talking about the full bubble mask.
Yeah. So with the visors, they're not living by the rules much anymore. I mean, they're not taking them off and skating out. So there's still punches that are being thrown when you just have the half shields on,
right?
Which I don't even know why they have them on half the time anyways, because they're sitting up here. They're not really protecting
Some of them
your
don't
eyes,
wear them very well.
But because they're mandated to wear them now, so they have
correct.
to wear them. So, but yeah, with the full whole bubble thing, that, you're not going to, somebody's not going to sit there and wait for you. Just hang on a second here. I'm going to take this glove off. I'm going to take that snap off, and that snap off. So that's a little different. That's what he's talking about, is that full one. The half ones,
that's right.
You can still get a little ugly in there.
All right, let's talk about Liam Bichsel, because he's been playing with Matt Dumba. I sat down and chatted with Bichsel for a while. You asked a question the other day we didn't have an answer to, so I found out. This is not Liam Bichsel's first concussion. He had one much more serious as far as the length of time 3 years ago, when he was playing for Leksands in Sweden. It was his first year, he said his first year pro, because he was still playing as a junior player in Switzerland before that. So he goes over to Sweden. He plays a little bit for the Leksands junior team, but he also plays for the senior team. He suffers a concussion. He said he missed 2 months, and the season ended before he recovered. So the season was over. I asked him about that compared with this one, and he said, I felt like I had a much better experience of how to go through that. I stayed calm in recovery. I wasn't super nervous. You obviously don't know. Every concussion could be different. But what really was interesting, Luds, is he wants to play physical. I said, you have a knack for, hitting guys and stirring things up. He goes, I know that I make people upset when I'm on the ice. And I said, well, how do you feel about dropping the gloves and doing that? And he said, I have no problem if somebody, and he pointed at Dumba, who's about 5 or 6 stalls away, said, if somebody runs him, I have no problem stepping up for him. He goes, but I'm not going to go chasing a guy around the ice to get him. And he said, I don't want to sit in the penalty box. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think he needs to be chasing anybody around the ice, not especially the way that he plays. It's going to come to him. You can just stand there, run a couple guys. So, yeah, the first thing on the concussions, I would guess that, and I'm sure you didn't ask him this, I think now that he had one that was bad, and then he knew right away what it was. We knew as he was skating off the ice.
I didn't get into that detail, but
no, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking he may have been concerned right at that point, because I know what happened on the first one. So, but the concussion thing is, unfortunately, when you're 20 years old and this is your second one, and they say they come a little often, a little easier. So, but the good news is for him, he put himself in that position because he lowered his body on that one hit. So generally, when he's hitting people, his head is up here, and he's able to drive through them. And I think. But as far as the fighting thing goes, I don't look at him being that kind of guy. I just think that. And I look at the game last night, with Washington and the Rangers, okay? And Rempe bumped into Ovi. And so, but Wilson does what he does. He went over and said, you don't touch Ovi. And so that is part of his calling card with anybody on the team, just because of his size and everything else that he does that. But it doesn't mean he has to go and fight. But, I just think that things can come to him. And I don't know how many guys are actually going to be knocking on the door, because as we've said, we don't really know, because we haven't seen any fights that he's been in. We haven't seen any video or anything like that. And that's maybe a good thing for the rest of the guys in the league too, because they might not know that what he's all about. And you don't want to be the first guy to test him maybe either. So that might be on his side.
More from him. I asked him, were you at all hesitant? I didn't want to say nervous coming back from the hit. We talked about it on the show. Gets his bell rung. Is he going to be a little tentative? He said, no. This is a line you'd love. This is a man's game. You have to play it that way.
Yeah, good. It's good to hear. Again, being the size that he is, I wouldn't expect any less of an answer from him, because, I'd be a little hesitant. Now, if he was Stankoven's size, where you're putting your head as a target every time you go into traffic just because of size differences all over the ice, that's a little bit different. For him, he's heads above a lot of people.
Tell me if this isn't music for your ears. He said he's trying to learn and craft his game and absorb as much from watching Esa Lindell play as he possibly can.
There's probably, so many players could say that. The way he manages his minutes, the way he manages the game, and he jumps into the play at the right time. So there's no question for anybody, especially a young defenseman, to be able to watch Esa play alongside of him. Watch the way he kills penalties. Watch his position on the ice, and he will. We've seen a couple times, maybe the whole time I've watched Esa, where he's not in the right position on the ice. and that'll be, we've seen it a couple times now with some guys here where they're on the perimeter of the ice where they need to be in the middle of the ice as a defenseman a couple more times. And that just comes with experience.
And he also, look, we don't have enough time for all this. I wish we could go into more detail, but he did say as a bigger guy, he's had to learn to be careful to keep his elbows tucked in, make sure not to make contact with the head. All the things that we talked about with the Cizikas hit on Bichsel, he's very aware as a bigger guy. He doesn't want to take those penalties. He wants to be on the ice contributing, not sitting in the box. He knows that with his size, you'll sometimes get those penalties because of just the big disparity. You know, you'll ragdoll a smaller guy, they might think it's illegal. So he said, the way I hit and where I make contact is really important. He also said, because I asked him about this, the difference between the way it's officiated in Sweden, in the international game, and the NHL. He used the word, it's much softer over there as far as how the referees make calls. He goes, I can cross-check somebody in front of the net much harder here without getting a penalty.
Yeah, all those things are great for him to say and do and practice and everything like that, but don't lose the fact and the sight that when you go to hit somebody, you want to make sure they know they were hit by you and you hurt them and you punish them. And again, legally, but he can lean into people with his stature, and what is he, 240, somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yeah, probably
230,
about that.
240. So he can lean into somebody and being 6'7", and it's going to hurt more than when Essa hits you. It just is. But he's got to make sure that he does it. And like he says, he apparently is going to make sure he does it as legal as he possibly can. But don't hold off on anybody.
Yes.
Just you make sure they hurt.
All right, I could do a bunch more. We're going to have to cut it a little short. We do have the Flames tonight. The Flames are on the last of a season-long 6-game road trip. They went all through the Southeast, came up to Washington, and then they finished with the Stars. This is the end of a trip. They're talking about points tonight could be a really good trip for them. They're 2-1-1 so far, right? That doesn't add up. 2-1-2, I think. But Dallas can sweep the homestand with a win. What are your quick thoughts? We're going to rattle through the line cards for the Flames. What are your thoughts about Calgary?
Well, Dallas just has to come out and play their game. I mean, this is a middle of the road team. I mean, every stat you look at, they're 16th, 18th, 19th. They spend some time in their zone. They have two defensemen in Anderson and Uyghur that obviously spend a lot of time in their zone because two of them are in the top 7 as far as blocking shots. So that just means that they spend a lot more time in their zone than they do everything else. And they're kind of hovering in that area. That's what their team is. It's just the middle of the road team. Dallas plays their game tonight. They play North. They play the tic-tac-toe, the kind of game that they want to play. They're going to get opportunities, and they don't have the same goalie that you would expect to be in the net tonight either, right?
Well, they gave up. So let's see the defense and goalies. Vladar gets the start. It's his 3rd consecutive, which is a bit of a surprise. But I was talking with the Calgary radio guy, Derek Wills, this morning, and he wondered if, because Wolf gave up 6 in Dallas back in December, if maybe they went with Vladar just for a difference because Dallas touched up Wolf in the last meeting.
The other thing I want to say, and I saw a little clip of Hanley talking to the guys this morning, right?
Yep.
So this kind of tells you, and this is nothing against Hanley, but this kind of tells you where this team is at if he's playing in the top 4.
Yep.
Okay, if he's going to play 20 minutes tonight, 22 minutes.
I don't think he's playing 20 minutes.
But if he's in the top 4, playing with Uyghur, which is he's the right kind of partner to play with Uyghur. But what I'm saying is this kind of tells you where they are as a group of defensemen. And then when you
check
look
out
at
the
forwards,
forwards.
when you look at the forward lines, it's very similar. So, you got some guy, Huberdeau, he's better than he was last year, but he's still not living up to the contract that he signed. And Kadri's going to be Kadri. He's going to be that guy that he'll be in your face all night long. And it would be nice to see Big Leon get a bump on Kadri early, and
Boy, wouldn't it?
And just send a message to him too.
First time we'll see Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost with the Flames back in January on the 30th.
Now there is Lomberg.
They acquired them from the Flyers in exchange for Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelletier, and picks in the 22nd round in 2025 and 7th round in 2028.
And we got to mention Blake Coleman. Don't forget that.
And there's Blake Coleman, who always likes to play in front of his hometown fans.
It's amazing how many times he's grabbed some points and scored against Dallas Stars. So he'll have his best game again tonight.
Jamie Benn, when I asked him first I said, it's great to see Joel Hanley. They were talking for a while after the Stars morning skate. He said, yeah, I love to see him. Great guy. He said, what's one of the things the Stars miss about not having Hanley? He goes, well, he's a heck of a golfer. Which he is, but he was being funny. So, hey, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be here for the post-game show. John Anderson, Craig Ludwig, Sam Nestler, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks again. We'll see you right after the game, Stars and Flames.
I believe that they are going to crush these guys tonight.
We all silly like the mayor.